Um, Hi, Heather Mattingly here. This is my video submission for assignment number 9. For the first part of this assignment, we were supposed to reflect on the quote by Ron Edmond about, I'm completely paraphrasing because I don't have the quote in front of me, the fact that all children are teachable. We just have to first kind of buy into the fact that the reason they're not being taught is because we haven't taught them. And my knee-jerk reaction to this was, the first thing I thought was, dude's obviously never been a teacher. Um, and then I Googled him because I wanted to find out what his background was, and I got to Wikipedia, and I saw that he actually has an extensive education, and although past, a lot of what he has brought forth has actually been instrumental in helping um, poorly performing schools revamp their curriculum. That's way nutshelled Wikipedia, but that's kind of what it said. So if I step back and think about it idealistically, sure, probably all students are reachable, all students are teachable, and I would say, in my opinion, that our biggest barrier to that would be time. There's lots of other barriers. We've got constraints with our standards, with the fact that we've got all this content that we have to teach in a very short amount of time to do it. In my program, we were required by the Texas legislature to cut our hours from 72 credit hours to 60. I can't cut my content. We'd lose our accreditation, so I have to teach the exact same amount of content in 12 credit hours less time. Um, which leads me to what I believe the biggest obstacle is in being able to reach every student is time. It's easy to teach to the students who want to be there. It's easy to teach the students who have the resources to make them be successful, a good home life, food on the table. They're not sleeping in their cars. Um, it's the other ones that I'm assuming he was speaking to, and the ones that I imagine that he is speaking to when he says that we need to accept the fact that we're not teaching, even though the students can be taught. And so, in my opinion, if we are idealistically to reach all these students, we would need a million hours in the day. We're already expected to give our students good educations, and I think for the most part, all of us want to do that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be taking these classes. Um, but we're also expected to teach them manners, and we're expected to be counselors, and we're expected to have all these resources at hand for when they need things, and there's not enough time in the day for us to do the research to find these things. We know we're in the classroom most of the time, and in order for us to do things like lecture prep or do lesson planning or grading papers, we do that at home. We do that on weekends. We do that in the evenings, which means that we're putting aside other aspects of our life, our husbands, our children, our social life. I don't know the last time I went out with a girlfriend. Um, and so how much more of my life am I expected to give up in order to reach all the students that could be taught if I had the time to reach them? Um, in the effort to keep this short, I'm going to kind of leave it at that. I feel like the biggest obstacle is time. Um, the second part of this video submission, Dr. H asked us to think about a time as learners that we were actually inspired to go beyond what was expected. And nothing against my educational experience, or maybe it's just me inherently as a person. When I was a student, I don't know that I ever felt like I went beyond what was expected, but I do recall the first time when the expectation was more than I thought I was able to do. So I actually saved the book. It was in graduate school, when I was in PT school, and I took a neuroanatomy class. And part of the requirements for the class is that each of us as students were given a case study out of the Willard text. We call them by authors. I don't even know what the name of the textbook is, something medical neuroanatomy. Anyway, we were given a case study out of this, and based off of the case study, based off the patient presentation, we had to come up with what anatomical structures in the brain we felt like were affected and how they were affected, what the pathology was behind it. Even though we're not medical doctors, it's a good learning process, I guess. But it was a high expectation, and to put even more effort or high stakes onto it is that we had to present our findings to the class and actually had to teach the rest of our classmates what we found. And the entire class was tested over the information that the instructor expected us to glean from this. And so if we didn't do a good job, then the students would do a poor job answering those questions on the test. So it was overwhelming when I first thought about it, but I got into it and I loved the process. I liked the challenge, and which surprised me because I'd not been that kind of person before educationally. And again, like I said, I saved the textbook. I don't know if you can see, but like I made lots of like notes to myself out to the side of places that I wanted to go. And okay, this seems like it correlates with this, but I need to go into the research to look that up to verify that that's what it is that I'm thinking that it is. And and so I did all this lateral learning, I guess, from stuff that wasn't in the direct textbook that we had for the class. I had to go to outside sources to figure out if I was on the right track about what I thought I was doing. And I loved it. It kind of ignited my inner nerd, and I continue to do that on a regular basis with most of the stuff that I do. I'll be reading research for stuff that I need to put into a lecture that I'm doing, and something in the research article will strike my attention, and then I go search that article, which leads me to another article, which leads me to another article, which leads me to 8 hours of chasing rabbits when I should have been just putting that information originally into my lecture. So I don't know if that's exactly going above and beyond, but I found out that I liked it when it's something that interests me. And so, like, relating it back to the textbook, it was the first time that I can remember actually having to incorporate those 6 facets. I keep wanting to call it a facet because it's spelled exactly the same, and in PT world, your facet joint are the joints in your vertebrae, but it's facet. So those 6 facets that they talked about in chapter 4, being able, can your students explain, interpret, apply? It was the first time I was ever actually required to do that at that level, and it was great. I learned a lot. I still remember the anatomy. Controversially, in that same PT program, I had another course with an instructor that I truly believe would have benefited from chapter 5, which is the essential questions chapter, where part of, I don't remember the entire part of the class, but I remember that at one point she sat down at a table and she had all of us kind of surround her, and she's like, okay, I want you to watch what I'm doing. And then she didn't say another word, and she had like a kickball, smaller than a kickball, but like a little air filled ball that she put on the table, and she put her hand on top of it and she just kind of rolled it around in circles on the table. And we all stared at her and watched her do it. And then when she got done, it felt like it was like for half an hour. It was probably like for 3 minutes, but it was excruciatingly, painfully boring. She said, okay, what did you think? And there were like crickets in the classroom. We all just stared at her. These are graduate students. And we're staring at her. None of us could say anything because we had absolutely no clue what we were supposed to take away from what it was that she was doing. And so, yeah, where it's great to think that even at the graduate level, students should be able to understand the point it is that you're trying to make without actually saying what it is they're supposed to be taking away from an activity. But as students, we're learning. And so it's helpful to have at least some sort of parameters of what I expect you to be watching. Now, however many years later, 20 years later, not quite 20 years later, as a seasoned clinician, as a seasoned educator, I can look at that activity and go, oh, well, I should have been observing her posture, and I should have been looking to see what type of proprioceptive input she was using. Was she using full hand contact on the ball? Was she able to sit unsupported? Did she need to use her other arm to assist? What did her shoulder stability look like? Was her head and neck and shoulders in alignment, or was she using bad posture? Those types of things. But she didn't mention any of that before that. We were just supposed to watch and then tell her what we thought. It was not an effective learning tool at that time without any type of parameters. So essential questions, I think if she maybe would have thought about, okay, what truly is it that I want them to glean from this, and then at least post some objectives like, okay, I'm going to do this activity, and I want you to think about it if I was your patient and you were rehabbing me from a shoulder surgery, or I was a kiddo with cerebral palsy and you were watching me do this activity on the table. What are you going to take away from this? How would you alter my body mechanics? So anyway, I kind of had, in my opinion, both sides of the experience for chapter 4 and chapter 5. Um, I will end this now. We're 10 minutes in. I'm using new equipment and I need to pick my daughter up from daycare in just a few minutes. So I'm going to see if this worked. Thank you very much for your time.